So when it comes to being a mom and just the constant need to have a healthy mentality, it's like a daily drive that many lack, or they have. You either don't or you do. And that can make or break a lot of the early years with children. And for me, that wasn't a reality check until my last born. He is extremely colicky. We just have this unique bond, and that adds to all the other crap. Now, again, I've had other kids, so I know the tricks that you use to get them to sleep through the night. Nothing works with this kid, nothing. It's like he needs a guidebook of his own, which fortunately I have studied astrology and the origins of using that for personal health and interactions with others and just learning the quirks, and it couldn't be more spot on if you pull his natal chart. So I've been following that, and that's when I noticed a huge turn once I actually studied who he is, you know, what kind of gifts God has given him, what kind of, you know, hindrances he's prone to because of his natal chart. It kind of gives you his temperament laid out as like a plan. This is how you need to work with him. This is how you need to, you know, these are his strengths, these are his weaknesses, and based on your knowledge of astrology, you know which ones to work with and how to work with them. Of course, he's a fire baby, and all my kids are fires. So that didn't really tell me too much until I went deeper into his Chiron, which is the wounded healer. It's the area in your life where you're always going to be dealing with something, and it's all centered on your Chiron placement. So that was pivotal because it's surrounded by his identity, who he is, and that could not be more dominant. And everything with him had to be done differently. So sleeping through the night, none of the tricks work. Plus, you know, you have a family that you don't want to keep up all night every night, and it's just not realistic. And I do not see those moms coming on here talking about that. I know I don't want to admit that my kid has not slept through the night, and he's almost 3. I would not want to admit that, but I know I'm not alone. I know there are other mothers with other kids and a spouse that has to work in the daytime or go to work, me, you know, that needs their sleep, and the cry it out method is just not realistic. And I wish more people were talking about that, but they don't. Some people can get away with that if they just take them to bed, and so then they just sleep and they share a bed. He is independent. He wants his bed, but he also wants his mom, and he also wants that cuddle moment. And breaking that need that he has for just cuddling for a brief few seconds and then going back to bed, I cannot deny him that. So that's the hardest thing. You know, you always hear about people wanting to, you know, you need to break those habits, they need to learn to self-soothe. Well, there's something about him that requires that connection to soothe, and why would I want to take that away? That's breaking who he naturally is. And I think this happens more often than not, where we will attribute something to like a bad habit, and he needs to learn, or they need to learn to self-soothe, which you always hear the phrase self-soothe. But why is it bad that he needs that connection to feel relaxed and settle back down? You would think the flip side is okay, then he's just gonna always need somebody in his life. No, because you're mom, you're his parent, you're his person. And bonding like that and building that relationship could not be more important. You're not teaching bad habits when you give him a hug and a kiss just so he can go back to bed. I know he's gonna outgrow this, and that's what I tell myself. It's only a matter of time where he's not gonna want to be a teenager and wake up and want his mommy. So it's not gonna last forever. So I've learned to accept the fact that I'm going to be living off of very little sleep for a while, and you know, there's going to come a time where he's not going to want anything to do with me for certain periods of his life. I think on that, and that's what kind of keeps me going. That's what keeps me being patient, with the whole situation. You have to accept defeat in a sense, but understand that it's for the good. It's for him and his well-being and his personality and his nurturing and nurturing that part of him, that kind of feminine part of him that I think all boys really do need to tap on and learn to work with, you know, the feminine energies. So that is where the dilemma lies with my youngest and with colicky babies in general. And I really hope more people will speak out on it and see it the way I see it, especially with the natal charts. Chani Nicholas has done an amazing job writing a book where you learn to understand that your natal chart is actually a form of self-care, and it's not a religion, and it's honestly something that's just been warped throughout the years, and she helps bring it down to reality and how we can use it to our advantage to actually strengthen relationships as well as our own. So when you're a mom, you are always wanting to make sure you're doing the right thing, and sometimes it could really put your mental health at risk, because as mothers, that feminine nurturer of the family, we can really take on the world and put everything on our shoulders, and that does do a number. And sometimes nothing, no effort you put in will help, and so sometimes you need some medication, you need some alternative medicine, you need help just to aid you through that time. And it's nothing long term, it's short term until your life is over that hill. My youngest is a very colicky baby. He was that way since birth. He never outgrew it. And really what that is he's very emotionally attached to me, very clingy. Him and I really do have this unique connection, and you just can't prevent that. You can't change that. That's just what it is. And some mothers do on certain children, sometimes with every child they have. Me, there was more of this independence with my children, my other children, until Oliver came around. And he is very, like, I make him very emotional. People are like mind blown at how emotional this kid gets with me. You know, he'll never cry, he'll never be a baby until I'm in the room. And then he's like, I'm a baby, take care of me, love me, I'm gonna cry so you can cuddle me. So he's super colicky because of that. And when you have other kids and you're trying to balance it out, it is so difficult. Now, I was working remote at home during his entire first year, so he got to have me with him 24/7 during his first year, and even then didn't help anything. It's not like I was working out of the home and he was needing me. This is just who he is, and if it's his personality, you can't kick against that. You just have to work with it. And so for the first time in a long time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna need some help, mental medication to help get through this time until he's outgrown it, until he has come into his own and he's able to, you know, live without me, you know, in a sense. Hi, Guga, I'm down here. Come down here. And so I sought such a variety of medication. And it's funny because what I narrowed it down to were two of the most expensive medication out there, and it made me dig and wonder why those were the only two that worked for me. I did genetic testing, so I found out which ones I really should avoid because of bad side effects. And that's really what the genetic testing does. It just tells you which ones you're probably going to be more prone to negative side effects on, and vice versa. And these two were the best recommended, but yet the most expensive. So it made me wonder, I'm like, okay, is this like a gimmick? This is big pharma trying to promote their most expensive one. But Trintrillix is the number one, the one that I use, and it is super expensive. And I couldn't figure out why, so I did digging, I did research, okay, what makes this so expensive? And I am fascinated by what I found. One main thing being there's no other like it. There's no generic options. So you're kind of forced to pay this price because it's the only one that makes it, the only pharma that makes it. So then from there, I did more digging as to, okay, so what is so unique about this ingredient? And it is the one that works amazing for me. And my insurance covers it because I've tried everything else. And it's kind of, you have to have tried everything before you resort to this and before they'll accept it and cover their portion of it. And it makes me wonder if more people could afford this, this would probably be the thing that would help people the most. It's Trintrillix. Like, it would be the ultimate antidepressant, but it's not because it's so fucking expensive. And again, it's the systematic corruption that we deal with where this is so, and it's sad. If you do research on Trintrillix, it is the only medicine, not quite an SSRI, but it's in the family, so to speak, that it has such an amazing rating from personal experience and people rating it as a drug. So it just speaks wonders. Being one of the most expensive and hard to get, and then having that kind of success rate. It's something that I'm wanting to call out, admit that this is something I've had to resort to, and what I had to do to get to it. I've had to try so many other medications. I had to try so many different coping mechanisms and methods, and even then, sometimes we need a little bit of help. And there's no shame in that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is something wrong with having such a hard time getting one of the best out there, to make it so difficult for people in lower income families that they can't get something like this. It is really great medication because it's overpriced, or you have to fight the system. And when you're doing that, that means paid appointments, trial and error. That all costs money and time that a lot of us don't have. The other medication that I am on is Abilify, which kind of connects with Trintrillix and amplifies it even more, helps with the side effects, and helps just seal the deal in a sense with Trintrillix. And not that I need it, but I don't like the side effects of like a low sex drive, which it doesn't, Trintrillix doesn't really have too many bad side effects. But for me and my unique system, I needed Abilify to kind of perfect Trintrillix even more for me in my unique situation. But that is over $2,000 out of pocket. So that it ends up being more expensive than Trintrillix just to have something that really ensures your SSRI is working. That is so freaking wrong in so many ways. And it's a really massive disappointment on the system that I see and the corrupt medical field. And, you know, I'm not a socialist. I don't agree with most of this mindset of that. But I lived in Germany, and I understand and respect the healthcare system over there. And in many ways, it's a positive thing, but in other ways, it's not. It's always pros and cons to everything. But that is one thing that I wish we had a little bit of, is that kind of medical system where people can have access to these things no matter their financial background or situation, their income bracket. It's just wrong that people suffer with, you know, mental illness or suffer from or are prevented from getting onto something that actually is known to work because it's too expensive. So again, I'm not a fan of big pharma. You should know that. I always talk against it, especially with kratom and CBD and marijuana. They are just the biggest posers, and I just see more of that as I started searching for antidepressant that would work for me. It just cemented my opinion of them. I will be checking in later on this journey, but I wanted to get raw and honest when it comes to motherhood and mental health.